always gets put on to the very last thing. And we hear it all the time, the three of us. You know, I've been putting this off, I've been hearing about it. We can always meet with someone and say, it's been a couple of years, and we know we're going to hear a yes out of them, guaranteed. Right?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you a story about my boss at the Neptune Society. Oh, it was about 20 years ago, and him and his wife and 10-year-old daughter were involved in a horrible car accident, and the wife died. And this is before he knew anything about cremation. And so he paid thousands of dollars to get his wife's body from Florida to Texas. And then when he got there, the funeral director, he was looking at certain caskets in a certain area, and the funeral director actually led him over to the more expensive ones and said, these are the ones you need to be looking at, Gary. You want people to know you loved your wife. And so he was like thanking the funeral director, but then looking back, it makes him so angry. But it just shows when you don't pre-plan, people are making decisions when they're emotional during their time of grief. And so that's a bad story. I mean, he got totally taken advantage of and had to pay thousands of dollars that he really didn't have at the time.
We know that most of us just experienced COVID for the last few years. So one thing I found, since I've been doing this almost 11 years myself, is that people found that this is something that they needed to talk about because they either knew someone that got sick or someone that maybe died from COVID. And this just made this a real experience. We are going to die. So one thing that I find is that if I talk to people about this, is that you get to choose what you want, and then your family will carry that out as kind of a theme that we're talking about here. You don't want them to have to make those decisions. This is a gift. This is a gift for you. This is a gift for them. And if you just paid your car insurance last month, that was just in case. This is going to happen someday. So let's plan on it and make our arrangements. Next question.
Do we have any questions from the audience? I have one. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
For Mr. Ballard, I think that French mortuary demonstrated one of the human wrong decisions you can make when you did the free scattering day.
Oh, yeah.
Would you mind telling that story, everybody? I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it was done a couple years ago. It's called Scatter Day. It was done at Sunset Memorial Park. And so what we did was, we know people out there have cremated remains in their household. Some of you may have them on your mantle right now, or they may have them stored in a closet somewhere. And so we felt that it was time for us to help the community out by saying, if you have cremated ashes that you have not interred somewhere or distributed, or you still have them, bring it on down to Sunset Memorial Park. We'll actually put them into a common ossuary, which is an area where you can disperse the ashes. We'll register them, and we'll give them a free cenotaph or a brick or a name with their loved one on it, just so that they have a permanent resting place. Because, you know, I remember hearing this one time at a conference that when, you know, and again, some people need the cremated ashes around them for a little while they're grieving. But what we don't want to do is turn your living room into a cemetery. Because that's not where they're supposed to be. They need a permanent place in order to memorialize them and to honor them. Do you want to elaborate on that more? No?
I don't know anything about the sunset.
No, I meant
well, I think the whole placement is a good comment, because I do want to get people, you know, come out of the closet, so to say, so that you can place your loved ones, and not to be offensive to anybody's religion, because I know a lot of our Catholic families don't want to separate remains, but some people are okay scattering some remains, placing some remains. But once again, we're here to help honor what you want. And the one thing I do talk about keeping your remains in a home is, after you die, what's going to happen to them? So they might not know Aunt Susie, you know, maybe they don't know her. So I would recommend that some sort of placement happen.
Consider that. Number two is, it's a financial savings, because funeral prices double every 10 to 12 years. They never go down. So the sooner you pre-plan, the sooner you save money. And right now, in this current economy, we could save a lot of money. We all want to save more money than we're getting right now. And number three is, there is a comfort knowing that it's done. Because we get questions all the time, the three of us, what do I do now? You don't have to worry about it. It's taken care of. Go enjoy life. And there is a great relief once they get it done, because they think it's harder. But we've been doing this a long time, the three of us. So we know that when they're done, there's a great sense of peace of mind to them when they do it. Yeah.
To complement what he's talking about is the financial, that's definitely one thing. One is peace of mind, because you know it's done. You've been making decisions, whether in a relationship or you have a sibling or children. They don't want to come in here and start from scratch. They don't know what you want because they don't talk at the breakfast table about mom, dad, what do you want? The other thing is it's transferable, is if you move, your policies are transferable. And as we've mentioned, the prices are locked in. And so when the prices are doubling every 10 to 12 years, that's a big burden. And you can make payments now. At the time of death, there's no payment plan. It's payment in full. Yes.
Transferable to another?
Yes, ma'am. So if you moved in the 11 years I've been doing this, people have been moving all the time, not to another person, but to another funeral home. We all deal, I believe, with funeral insurance policies. So basically you could go and you'd meet with a funeral director, not someone like ourselves, and they would let you know if they could transfer the policy. And I personally have never had problems with any of my families doing that. And that's peace of mind. And that's why you're doing this. Did you want to add anything to that? Sure.
Well, I'm gonna ditto Mark. I mean, it is making your personal wishes known and taking that financial and emotional burden off of your loved ones at the time of need when they're emotional. The second thing is finances. If you lock in your price today, imagine how much money you'll save if you pass away 30 years from now. We have people as young as in their 30s that pre-plan. And it's not that common, but it does happen because they imagine the money they'll save. And then the third thing, like Mark said, is peace of mind. Having that peace of mind, knowing that you're not being a burden to your loved ones at the time of need.
There's one more thing I want to add. This morning I was meeting with a lady that did not know that if she's the only one in her bank account and when she dies, that her bank account is frozen and her family does not have access to those funds for at least 2 weeks until they get death certificates. So if your family can't afford what you want, they do what they can afford.
Mhm.
So unfortunately, the funeral home is the school of hard knocks. And this is sometimes the walls of where people are told some things that they may not know. Anybody else have anything?
Well, it does lock in today's prices at the place where you pre-plan.
Yes.
If you transfer it, that lock-in does not transfer, correct?
Correct. They can either accept it as it is. They could tell you, like, if you go to a different state and they don't have cremation permits like we do, or they could tell you, like, we don't have this particular urn, but we have that particular urn or whatever. It just depends on what they're, and it's also, if you go to, what I tell people is similar economies, like most of the country is in a similar economy. If you went to San Francisco or DC or something like that, you're not comparing apples to apples.
Can I have that?
Sure.
Yeah, so with the Neptune Society, you are covered anywhere in the world while traveling, and you can permanently relocate your residence anywhere in the US or Canada, and your plan goes with you. You lock your price in here in New Mexico, and it doesn't matter if you move to New York City, we will never charge your family another dime. So in our case, you do lock your price in, and you could pass away 50 years from now, and we'll never ask your family for another dime for inflation, by the mile for transportation, by the day for refrigeration. So you do lock your price in with us.
So that's cremation only?
Yes, Neptune Society is the nation's oldest and largest pre-planning cremation company. We started in LA in 1973, and now we have 114 offices around the nation. And we've been in the Albuquerque market for 12 years now.
You can prepay for that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you lock your price in the day you sign up, and it doesn't matter where you move or when you die, we're never gonna ask your family for another dime. That's one of the things we're known for.
I have
yes.
one more thing, Dad.
Sure.
Renee brought up a good point. Out of area protection, unless you know where and when you're gonna die, I don't know when that's happening for me, and most people don't. I believe all three of us offer that. And so that's another thing that I would seriously think about, is that you want to protect yourself, because it could cost up to $20,000 to get you back home, and there's no payment plan on that. And it's very inexpensive. Highly recommend that. So you can see we're really resources for many things. French and Daniels, we have cemeteries, funerals, we do casket, we do cremation, we've got travel, Neptune's cremation. So you have a lot of choices. It just depends on what you're looking for. I mean to speak for French, but.
No, by all means, go ahead. But hang on, but I wanted to go back, I'll get back to Amanda, is that on the transferring, there are some funeral homes, however, that based on your prices that you get
Right.
at your funeral home, they may honor those prices, okay?
Right.
It's up to the funeral home where you transfer it to, but the full value of your policy goes with you. The funeral home just performs the services, but the policy is under your name. And to kind of go back to it, to dip into that a little bit, we're an insurance regulated state, which means anytime you go to any funeral home to pre-plan, they have to have an insurance underwriter to protect your money in case something happens to the funeral home. It's a good law. It's a very good law. So it makes things really clean. So if you hear, hey, what is your insurance company? You need to ask them, who's your underwriter? Who underwrites your policies? Okay. But Amanda? So what Amanda was asking is, if someone didn't pre-plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, and at the time of need, how much money would they have to come out of pocket with? Because there are no payment options at the time of death. Funeral home expects to be paying on the time of death. So, it's going to vary on what you choose on items. It's going to vary on, whether you want just a direct cremation, whether you want a cremation with services, or whether you want a full burial. I mean, it can vary from prices of anywhere from $6,000-$7,000 up to $10,000, $11,000, $12,000, even $15,000. It goes all over the board, depending on if you have just one basic plan. And some places do have one basic plan. French and Daniels offers various plans that you want, but again, if you can imagine your family sitting there going, okay, well, dad's full burial with your services and graveside is going to be $14,000. And the impact of that family going, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to do it? And all of a sudden they're trying to figure out who has the credit cards and who has the money and where can they get the money from? Where if it's pre-planned and they walk in and the funeral director basically says, you know what, Mark's pre-planned, you don't have to worry about it. You need to go home and figure out who's going to give the eulogy, who's going to talk, where they're going to stay, who's going to eat where, who's going to, have the post gathering or celebration of life. You don't have to worry about anything. And that relief is pretty tremendous. It's a great gift that you give to your families. I know it didn't really answer your question. Okay, good. But I'll let Dana also chime in.
Okay. As he's mentioned, we do have different prices. We also have a lower alternative that competes with some of our other competitors that are not here for people that are on really tight budgets. So we offer just every price point you can have. Sometimes when we deal with people with fixed incomes and they say, Dana, I only have X amount of money a month. So then we figure out how we can help them pre-plan. Sometimes I help people pre-plan in 2 or 3 stages because maybe their budget can't afford everything they want all at once. So they can get, as Mark mentioned, 1 or 2 or 3 policies. That's not normal, but we're here to help people. So we want to make it work for you. I don't want people to be overwhelmed. We also help people with Medicaid spend downs. So if you know anybody that's spending down their monies and has to get rid of their funds because they're going to go on Medicaid, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you want me to explain that some more? Okay. Okay. So basically, if you have to get rid of you're going on Medicaid and you have too much money, sometimes you have to get rid of insurance policies or whatever. And so we do what we call an irrevocable policy, so that Medicaid sees it as a zero benefit, but a full benefit for the family person. And what's nice about that is then they're completely protected. The cemetery's done, the funeral's done, whatever they need to have done. And they're not scrambling, giving their monies to Medicaid. They're using it on the funeral, which is exactly what Medicaid wants them to do. So many of us are experienced doing that. And there's quite a few people in the city and state that need to do Medicaid spend downs. So if you're not familiar with that, we can talk to you about that more afterwards too, if you have specific questions. Anybody else have any comments about that?
Yeah, basically what happens is you can't afford to take care of mom anymore. You have to put mom in a facility, and you go into Social Security and ask them, so what's mom going to get? And they say, well, how much money does mom have? How many assets does she have? And they're going to basically look through everything, insurance policies, everything.
5 years back.
And they're going to basically say, okay, look, what is this insurance plan you have? Well, it's a whole life policy. You need to cash it out.
Right.
What about this one here? Well, it's this, and you need to cash it out. What about this one here? Well, that's a pre-planned policy. Is it irrevocable? Yeah, we can't touch it.
Right.
That's one of the benefits of it. So like Dana said, and I'm sure Renee, we get people come in and say, mom's going on Medicaid. I need to do a spend down. I need to get a funeral plan. Social Security will tell them, go get a funeral plan
Mhm.
to liquidate some of those assets, which you can't have more than $2,000 a month coming in. That's it. That's the limit. So,
Yeah, I don't have anything down to that.
so.
I do have a question from our online audience. My sister is in long-term care in another state and I'm her representative. What's the best option for arranging a funeral? The facility would like a funeral home on record, but I don't have any connections.
Yeah, I mean, what I would do at that point is find out where her facility is
Mhm.
in the States, find a couple of funeral homes that are nearby. Call them up and say, can you put together a plan for my she said for a mom, is that right?
For her sister.
Sister, excuse me. And then get some estimates from them. She can make the best determination of what she wants. They should be able to provide some options, especially if she has a power of attorney, to be able to make that choices for her, because once the power of attorney, once that happens, power of attorney ceases to exist. So usually you want to make those decisions now, especially since her sister's in the same situation. And she can make those decisions. And her sister might even be able to actually say, here's what I want, and she can get involved now before her situation medically gets even more, gets worse, I should say.
And
Sorry.
from a license standpoint, she will sign an out-of-state form. I deal with that all the time. I just did a sign in Chicago. Mom's here. He had to sign out-of-state paperwork. Everything was being done here. Vice versa, we can do the same thing for going to another state. But I'm licensed in this state, which I think you guys probably have similar things. So we have to be very careful about that because we want to be protective of our license and make sure everything's being done the way it's supposed to be done. But we can help anybody. Especially so she would be working with somebody from that location,
Right.
as Mark mentioned, and then get the paperwork done, and they could do everything electronically unless she's going to be there in town.
What do you think about the online funeralocity, like shopping for funeral home websites?
Well, we do have a lot of questions about people when they like check our price lists and things like that, our general price lists. And I normally tell people, until I know specifically what you want, I don't want to give you, I can give you generalities. And if you're looking for your question about the general prices, but because everybody's so different, and if you're going to do a payment plan and on your age, and if you're covered after the first payment, there's a lot of specifics that until we sit and talk with you, we really can't cater to what you're doing. So that's what I would recommend we do.
Yeah. You can also, I mean, like we were mentioning before, Dana mentioned about the low cost alternative, we have one as well. And what I see, Gail, is a lot of those are now strictly online. A lot of them, it's more simpler. I mean, you have a choice of maybe 3 or 4 cremation caskets. You have a choice of maybe 5 or 6 urns.
Right.
People like the comfort of doing it out of their home. They don't have anybody in front of them, because there are people, I don't want to be sold, and you shouldn't be sold. You should be able to be educated, if anything, not be sold. And if you ever feel like you're being sold, I tell people walk away, because you have the power to shop around. You should shop around to make the best decisions. And then if you have some estimates, you can get a licensed professional like any one of us to say, okay, tell me what the difference is between A, B, or C. They should be able to tell you that. But the low cost alternatives are now becoming more online because they're able to keep the prices down, make it very simple. It's a direct cremation. There's no obituary, there's no interment, and then someone's going to come pick up the cremated ashes. That's it. So,
Yeah, well, it's true about, the ones that you see online, they really are just direct cremation, like Mark said. And so you really should meet with an advisor from several different funeral homes, or at least a few, and they can cater and custom to your specific wants and needs. Yeah.
I just have one more comment. Bottom line, whoever you feel comfortable with, once you've looked at all these numbers and everything, that's who you need to work with.
Right.
If you feel comfortable with someone, remember this: when that day comes, when you pass, you know that your family will be well taken care of. And that's the bottom line. If you feel comfortable, then they'll feel more comfortable. I'm not going to say, but it's just the more you can get done. We give you family record guides so you can get your affairs in order. It's a lot of homework. But the more of that you do, it's not like they can tap Mark and say, Mark, change your password. What's that password? I can't figure it out.
Right.
That's not a possibility. So I'm not trying to make it light, but just think about all the things that you do every day that people aren't going to know what to do unless you tell them. Anything else?
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
I wanted to answer on family record guides. I'm a licensed film director. I've been in this business my whole life. One of the things I've seen is, and I always, you may disagree with this, but I never hand out a family record guide to somebody. I fill it out for them. I've gone to too many homes to make a removal in the middle of the night, and the son goes over and goes, "Hey, we found this family record guide in the china cabinet here. Mom, this is her wishes," and they hand it to you, and they maybe fill out 2 or 3 lines on the first page.
Right.
And,
Yep.
and you're like, okay, I know she wants the 23rd Psalm read, and that's it. And there's so much more to it, as Mark and you guys can tell you, there's so many decisions that we made. So that's the only advice I give. If you get a family record guide, don't procrastinate. I mean, actually sit there and fill it out.
Right.
Because how many people know your mother's city, state, and county she was born in, where they were married, how many years of education? You have to have all this for a death certificate. So most people sit there and go, I don't know. So while you're grieving, now you have to go back to a home and look for all this stuff.
Sure.
Instead of building the picture video and personalizing the service, you're running around trying to find a DD 214 or something else like that. So to really help your family, if you take a record guide, complete the thing.
Right. That really is the best gift. You're right.
Sorry for the.
No, it's good.
Well, and I can say from experience, you know, I pre-planned years ago and actually prepaid the previous year because we got some money, and I was like, this is a good thing to put that money toward. But when my husband died back in April, going to the funeral home, even though I've been in many funeral homes many times, it really felt different.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Gail.
But, you know, having made those arrangements in advance, it helped.
Yeah.
It really did help.
Good.
You got to focus on a celebration rather than having to plan something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We already had the wicker casket.
Yeah, it was done well. You did a great job of that too.
When you hear something like that, or Gail just said, sometimes even when people are picking up death certificates, they want to make appointments to get something done, because if they didn't prearrange, they don't want their family to have to go through that, what they just had to go through. Luckily, she was smart and she did that. She's in the industry and she knows what she's talking about. But it truly is a gift. And so if nothing else you learned from today, please, whether it's yourself or someone else, go home and really think about this, because this is something that needs to be done.
Yes.
Everybody's smiling back. Do you have no questions? Come on, you got a couple of questions. And I guarantee you, whatever you're going to ask, we've heard it.
Yeah, really? We've stopped saying we've heard everything though.
I'll bring up one question sometimes is I want to use my life insurance to pay for
Oh,
my
yeah,
funeral
that's a
plan.
good one.
And though life insurance is a great thing to have, life insurance is for the living.
Yes.
Because 70% of those who pass away are going to pass away in an institution somewhere. Assisted living, hospital. You know, mom has a heart attack, take her to the hospital, mom passes away. I mean, and that's what the life insurance policy should be used for, because it's going to take you anywhere from 4 to 5 weeks to get a death certificate. And that life insurance is going to want a death certificate before they release the funds. If you choose to use a life insurance plan for your death, what will happen is most funeral homes will have a third party that's going to pull those funds, and they're going to charge you anywhere from 3 to 5% of the amount just for extrapolating those funds from it. And that's money that should go to your family.
And charge you current prices.
And charge you current prices. You're gonna have to go through a 2-hour, 3-hour arrangement with the funeral director, trying to figure out if dad wants the blue or the bronze casket, you know, and I haven't seen dad for a while. Let's just get the bronze one. It's, $5,000, you know. But if you're thinking about that, we encourage you not to do that, because that life insurance is for the living. That's what it's for, you know. Rob?
Stat to that, to add to Mark's point, according to US Census, a widow will live on average 18 years after the man dies in the United States. So you think he leaves you 100,000 or 150,000, how long will that actually last?
Correct.
You know, and so that's a long time it's almost a lifetime after the man dies, which is 82% of the times.
Right. And by the way, you notice that there's more women in this room than men. Women are better at this than men are.
Absolutely.
Women, if you have men in your life, as he just mentioned, stats only, they'll go first. So if you want to be sitting in a funeral home, don't pre-plan.
Yeah,
By the way, you can plan for your spouse, when, you know,
Yeah,
if
you
they
could.
say, I'm gonna do your plan because you won't do it.
We've done
And
that.
you can come in and do it because you have what they call insurable interest. So you're allowed to do that. You're all sitting there going, oh, wait, I'm gonna plan for it. I'm not gonna tell them. You had a question?
Are you seeing any trends of living funerals where people are coming in and doing the funeral prior to death so they can be part of that?
We've only had a couple in probably the last 7 or 8 years, I can tell you, where I want to be part of the funeral, I want to be there, I want people to talk to me, but maybe 2 in the last,
Yeah.
8 or 9
It's
years.
not common.
I don't know of anybody else.
No, it's not common. No.
Yeah.
We've done a few, but not many.
They talk about it, and usually, and especially if it's a male, they'll put they'll put it off, and by the time they decide, yeah, I should have done it, they pass away. So it happens, But yeah, I mean, we tell people you should pre-plan, because usually what we hear is, I'm not ready for you yet. And I always tell them, well, when will that be? And all I have to do is ask them, have you had somebody pass away that you know that you didn't, that was unexpected? Yeah, it happens. It's not like we can sit there and go, well, it's 4 o'clock on a Monday, today's the day, come on in. Doesn't work that way.
We are not God, and knock on something. But in the 11 years I've done this, the only people that have died the week I've done the pre-arranging, once again, knocking on wood, are usually in hospice. So we are not the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
We are not, but we are not God. So we don't know. I mean, you could go out and fall on a banana peel and that could be it. So, but it's still a very good thing to do. So I tell people, you paid car insurance last month and that was just in case this is going to happen. So any other questions?
I have a comment online. Angela says, for my mother's funeral service at French Funerals and Cremations, plus her entombment in a local mausoleum, we paid $30,000.
Yes, you did with mausoleum. Yes.
Yeah, placement in the mausoleum costs more than the funeral service.
Yes.
She died at age 60 unexpectedly in her sleep at home. However, I urge each of you to discuss your wishes with your children now. I did the best I could to make her proud with the little information I had regarding her wishes.
Yeah.
Mausoleum is the most expensive placement you're
Yep.
gonna have. So, if you're gonna pick budget, that's not the thing to pick.
I mean, cemetery is all about location,
Yeah.
so.
yes, I would say 90% of people do not want their family spending an outrageous amount of money for their death, because it can be used for something better. So that's why it's so important to make your wishes known to your family, so they don't do it out of guilt or thinking you deserve the best, or for whatever reason that they want to spend a lot of money, because it's not necessary unless that person wants that done.
Oh, there's one more comment I want to make. Is anybody in this room the go-to person in their life, or who's the go-to person in your life? If you are that person, then you better do this, because when you die, who are they going to go to? So I've met many people that I've asked this question to, and they're like, I guess I better do this because who's going to do it for me? So there's just so many different reasons to do this, but you have to be good with it. Nobody's going to talk you into doing this, and it's your decision. Like we said, we're not here to push you into anything. We'll give you the information, and when you know it's right, you'll do it. But if you are the go-to person, think about that. Right, Gail?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, but there are people, especially guys, who will say, I'm not going. And
You want to comment on that,
there's
guys?
Sure.
my family who's like, I keep bringing it up, and he's like,
Yeah, and we are, men are the worst.
Yeah, they are.
They really are, and I have no problem telling any guy that. I mean, and I've had arrangements where they've sat there and the spouse has brought the husband in and he sits there with his arms folded, doesn't engage in a conversation. I finally asked, hey, Tom, you haven't said anything. I said, you want to make any comments about this? She just made me come here. I'm telling you that she loves you and she knows that you love her, and that she really doesn't want to do this when you pass away. So I know that you love her, and I know you want to get this taken care of, don't you?
That's
Now,
right.
what guy is going to sit there and go, nope?
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
I mean, that's what it is. It really is. So, yeah.
Here's a question about insurance. I'm not totally straight. Do you have to pay off the entire policy before you die? Or is there a way that if you die early, that the policy is covered?
Go ahead.
All right, so New Mexico is one of 3 states in the country that it's mandated by our state that whenever you prearrange, whether it's for a cremation or a burial, a portion of it must go into a life insurance policy for your protection, so that in the event that you pass away, and the funeral home went under for any reason, the state will take those funds, give it to another funeral home to handle your cremation or burial. And so, if you do a payment plan, if you pay in full, then it's set aside. And so the funeral home can't collect until you actually pass away, because it's gonna be there when you pass away. And they do that because there was a local funeral home here about 30 years ago that collected all this money fraudulently, knowing they were going to file for bankruptcy. They hurt a bunch of families, burned people out of their money, and ended up in prison, and rightfully so. And so ever since then, we're one of the 3 states that mandates it. If you are doing a payment plan with a funeral home, then you're just, you're gonna pay up until until it's paid off. Like we have 3 and 5 year plans. I don't know what French you can
To the funeral home, but to the insurance.
to the insurance, but it's part, like with Neptune, it's part of your policy, your plan with us. And so a portion of your money would go to the funeral home and a portion of your money goes to the life insurance company. But you don't have to go get your life insurance policy. That's all done through the funeral home.
Okay, okay, to answer your question, Gail, if it depends on your health.
Mhm.
So if you're a good health, I ask you, Gail, all these questions, you say no, to all these, excuse me, health questions. I say then, Gail, after the first payment, God forbid if you would die, this policy is paid in full except for a few non-guaranteed cash advance items, like cremation permits and talk for a minute, Mark, I can't.
Sure. What Dana's referring to is in any insurance plan for a funeral policy, there's a cost of insurance. So just like you pay auto insurance, you never really use it, like just really you have to have it. So it's there for you to use in case you have an accident, whatever it is. And cost of insurance is built into your monthly payments. So that if you should happen to pass away and you've answered no to the health questions, the policy will pay itself off. You don't owe any back premiums or nothing. So it's a benefit of having a modal pay or multi-year pay is what they call it, to do that. Now, if you did answer yes to the health questions and there were some issues, then usually what it is, depending on your insurance underwriter, is that there is, based on your payments paid, is what they'll use that you've already paid into it, and there's a percentage there. Now, if you get past the first 2 years, because it's a national standard on insurance policies that someone passes away, they do a 2-year look back. They want to make sure you answered the health questions correctly. So that's why usually they'll ask you who's your doctor. And so they'll ask, so if you've answered them correctly, they'll look back, and if once you get past the first 2 years, you're vested in. So if you did a 5 or you do this 7 or 10 or 20-year plan, it's paid off. The one thing I will tell you, and I think I have the support of the people here too, is that if you have a multi-year pay contract, you want to pay that off as soon as possible. You don't want to pay it full term, because if you pay it full term, you'll pay twice, sometimes 3 times as much as your policy, because of that cost of insurance that's built in every month that goes in there.
Can I
Just one more, so I can speak now.
okay.
So I agree with Mark about that, but some people, there's 2 different kinds of brains I work with. One is, well, I'm healthy, so why should I pay the whole thing off? Because I'm covered after the first payment. The other one is, Dana, I just want to pay it in full. So we're not here to tell you which way to do it, but as Mark mentioned, if you pick the 3, 5, or we have 10-year plans, you are going to pay more, and it's the cost of insurance, as we've been talking about. But if your budget, it's whatever your budget can afford. If your budget can afford to pay it off early, then do it. If your budget can't, then you're covered. So does that answer your question, Gail?
Yeah, and when I pre-planned, we had the option of like 3 payments.
90 days, same as cash.
We have 90 days, same as cash, right? Gail, Renee, want to comment?
Yeah, our company operates a little different. You never get charged interest on a payment plan. I mean, we have 0% interest. Sometimes we have interest, but We have 0% interest, payment plans, and we only offer 3 and 5. And you don't get, we don't ask health questions. It's set up differently than how, Gail and Mark's funeral homes are. And we don't ask health questions. You just pay your payments, over the 3 and 5 year period.
Next question on that. So is yours insurance? And if it is, what happens if they die in the 3rd year of a 5-year payment? Like they owe the payment?
Yeah, then their loved ones are responsible for the balance, yes.
That's insurance, not.
Yes, because in our case, the cremation portion, if they're doing a payment plan, goes with our insurance company, American Memorial Life Insurance Company. But if they do pass away before the 3 or the 5 years is up, their loved ones are responsible for paying the balance, yes.
So does the insurance thing make sense for you all? This isn't like you getting a USA policy or a State Farm. This is different. It's funeral insurance. So we're not trying to confuse you.
And the company names are.
Yeah, mine's Global Atlantic. I don't know what yours is.
Funeral Directors Life Insurance.
Okay. And so, but they are, so it just depends on what, like I said, works for you guys. They all have really good ratings. You need to know that. You need to know that you're protected, because funeral homes used to take your monies and they didn't do a good job of managing them. So now this is a protection for you and for the funeral homes. It's a win-win.
Do you know, besides New Mexico, how many other states require an insurance for pre-need?
Well, the company I work for, we're in 26 states, and Global Atlantic represents all the funeral homes that we work with, and we have 350 locations.
The 3 states that mandate life insurance going through a funeral home, whether it's for a cremation or a burial, is New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Idaho. In those 3 states, it is mandated by the state. Like in our case, our other offices that aren't insurance states, we put it in a trust because it's good business to do so. So the money's protected that way.
Yeah, I mean, they all are correct. You're gonna get some states, depending on the states, how they are. You're gonna get some that are insurance only, you're gonna get some that are trust only, you're gonna get some that are insurance and trust. And usually the trust and insurance is based on the funeral home, what they want to do. And what they usually do is they're going to put their single pays, in the insurance product, and they're gonna put, they're gonna put their single pays in their trust, and they're gonna put their multi-year pays in the insurance product, because they want the money. And they can dictate how they use that money. It kind of lets you know, back in the early 1980s here, we had a funeral home in New Mexico that used pre-planned money and used it for building startup costs, and they went bankrupt. So 300 families lost their policies. That's when the state came in and said, we're going to adopt the regulation of insurance underwriting, which is a great rule. I think it's one of the best things ever. So, yeah.
And I think New Hampshire has a trust set up. I'm not sure what others.
Yeah, when they have trust too, sometimes, which is good and bad, and I say
Harder
that
to transfer.
because
Yeah.
they will charge you fees.
Yeah.
They can dictate what fees they want to charge you.
Yeah.
You want to move your policy, I'm going to charge you a fee. You want to cash it out, I'm going to charge you a fee. You want to change your policy, I'm going to charge you a fee.
Yeah.
They can charge fees.
Yeah.
When they use trust, it's up to the funeral home depending on where they're at. So
It just makes it more messy. It's just,
Yeah.
not clean.
I think
Well-
the other thing to add between trust and insurance is, insurance you have to file individually, each one. Anytime you see funeral home or cemeteries absconded funds, it's because there's a trust account that somebody can take
Yep.
it all out.
correct.
Insurance, the guy to embezzle insurance, you'd have to file a fake death certificate for every single. You're talking about $5,000 to $10,000. It'd take a lot of effort. Where a trust, paying out $2 million in it, somebody can just go bring it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
New York's a state that only uses trust. They don't allow you to do insurance.
Right.
Oh, really? Oh.
And also, we need to be licensed to do this. So my license is different than my funeral director's license.
Mhm.
And I have to recertify every 2 years. So I have to be current, and I just renewed it in July. So we have to have a license.
Yep.
You just can't, nobody off the street can just do this. So his license is different than my license, because God bless you, but I don't want to be a funeral director. So.
Insurance license, no.
So we have to have a license, and so so your benefit is that we have to be renewing these all the time. And you can't just sell it, so you have, it's a big deal that we do this. So not for cemetery, but for the funeral part of it. Anybody else?
One last question from me. Talk to me about lunch and learns and how you
Oh,
market
yeah.
Cremate
Just did one this
in
morning.
different ways.
Not sure. Let's start.
I just did one this morning. So, lunch and learns, breakfast, whatever. So we invite people out to listen to some general information about pre-planning, and then we make appointments to meet with them because this is something that we believe that everybody should do. And sometimes we meet people to talk about their parents or themselves, and then we get together and give them that family record guide. And he's right, help them fill things in, because the more information we help them with, the better they're going to want to get things done. And then we meet, whether it's in the funeral homes and their homes. So, some people get creative, like, pre-planning and pizza, or I don't know, what are some of those are terms like that, Gail, like that.
Yeah.
And and it's very helpful to people that we do this, and we do it around the city because you probably guys do them in different locations too.
Right.
So, and sometimes we'll do like for veterans groups or just whoever, because everybody has different questions. And then we set up one-to-ones with you so we can give you individual attention and time so that we can make those. So we do them quite regularly, actually, and families really appreciate it.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, we do quite a bit of them ourselves every year, and usually in a group environment like yourselves here, it's kind of easier for you. You don't feel the pressure of a one-on-one, so you'll answer your questions, and they kind of like the general atmosphere of it. And we're about a 23-minute presentation, and then that's really it. And a lot of the questions are asked, and then we go around and we try and set them up for appointments. So.
Yeah, the same thing that they both said. We have them all across this city, in Los Lunas, Rio Rancho, up in the mountains. I mean, all over the place. You can look at our website to see where ours are. And so you can either find one by looking on our online and typing in your zip code, or we do mailings. That's how we market them. So we do direct mail pieces to specific neighborhoods, inviting them to a particular restaurant on this day for a free lunch, and our presentation is about 20 minutes long as well, and then answer questions for everybody. So it like Mark said, it's not high pressure one-on-one, you're in a group setting.
I got one of those mailers recently.
I did too. That's like, oh, okay.
Any other questions in the audience?
Well, you guys have been fabulous.
No, thank you all for being here too.
Thank you.
Thank you much.